best investment would be the first property I ever bought, because that investment was the one that got me all the rest of it. I didn't hire an EA. I didn't hire, an assistant. I didn't hire any of those people. I hired a videographer because I know how powerful brand is. And now that's the thing that separates people like me from other people in the industry. Been in those industries the same amount of time. Some would say maybe have the same amount of knowledge. No one knows who they are. And that's the most important thing.
Are there any hotspot areas or states or regions that you think are opportunities to make quicker money over the next 5 years, or does that just go against the way that you invest?
The place where there's opportunity now because it's had like a huge lag period. You don't say the opposite when it's easy, right? You're like, this is an easy living crisis because it's fucking, there's so much money everywhere. It's just like, it is what it is. And that's just life. The best cities become more expensive. If you are born in the US today, do you go, I can't believe I can't afford to buy a property in New York? Of course you don't, because it's fucking New York and rich people live in New York. And in Sydney, rich people live in Sydney. And if you're not rich, then I don't give a fuck, but you can't live in Sydney. That's the end of the story. Be rich or don't live here.
Build a $25 million business in less than 5 years. Not many people, regardless of the industry, unless they've got some serious like VC investment, can scale a business that quickly.
Even if you have the hardest upbringing, parents that didn't love you, you had no money, you ended up with credit card debt, you had to live on your own since you were 5 years old, who gives a fuck? The world doesn't care. That's the thing. Like, the world actually doesn't. You might care because in your own life, your story is the most important. The world doesn't care. And if the world doesn't care, then you just need to get over that.
All right, guys, welcome back to another episode. We had Jack Henderson on for a part 2 today. The first time we had him on the podcast about a year ago, you guys went nuts for it, did really, really well, had so much positive feedback. So we had him back in the seat today. He's 28 years old, has a property portfolio personally of over $40 million, approaching 50 really soon. His business that he only launched 4 years ago or so is going to do 25 million in revenue this year. So we chat a lot about the business strategies that allowed him to grow so quickly. And then we spent a big chunk of it on property investing, how to grow your own property portfolio, and essentially get ahead in life, create financial freedom. So tons of great stuff there. Jack has some very strong point of views and opinions on the way certain things work and how to get ahead in life. So I really enjoyed it. I know you guys will too. I'd love to hear your thoughts below. But before we get into the podcast, can I ask for a few favors? If you're watching on YouTube, could you do me a favor and like this video? It takes you 2 seconds and it really helps me out. And hit subscribe if you haven't already. We're so close to 4K. I want to hit 5K this year, but we're so close to 4,000 subscribers. So if you could hit like and subscribe for me, I'd really, really appreciate it. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, leave us a 5-star review. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Let's get into the pod. All right, we're back with another episode, Jack Henderson part 2. Now, I know a lot of you loved that episode before. We are mainly a business podcast, but I think you guys really, had such good feedback for Jack's episode. I think a lot of people make money from business. And then if you want to multiply it, property is my favorite way. Not that I've done a lot, not even close to the amount that Jack's done, but I think it's just like such a good time to have Jack in again. So for those that don't know, Jack, founder of Henderson Advocacy, Endeavour Build, Henderson Develop, and Settlers Rest. He has a massive personal property portfolio in the tens of millions. Essentially, he's a young man still in his 20s that's made a shit ton of money through property. So going to pick your brain a bit. Your business has done incredibly well. So I will chat a little bit about the business side of what you've done.
Yep.
I really just want to get into your mind in terms of investment, in terms of growing your personal portfolio, whether you be someone with millions of dollars in the bank or someone just getting started out. I know a lot. Was Insight. We were just talking about it off air. You're on a show a few days ago, Insight.
Yes. Great people.
And I was looking at some of the comments from that show, and a lot of, you're privileged or this and that. But you grew up in like Western Sydney.
I'm a privileged white male with rich parents, apparently.
Yeah, aren't we all? But you grew up like Western Sydney, normal family. You didn't come from a lot of money
man.
Just for the context.
Normal upbringing. Yep. Dad was a machine operator for a civil construction company, and then ended up becoming a foreman. And my mum was admin, and then she started working for me a few years ago. So normal parents, normal upbringing, and yeah.
What was your first job as well when you started this journey?
My first job was picking up golf balls at Rum Corp's golf course for $7 an hour in like South Windsor, Richmond area.
Yeah.
And then I worked at a takeaway shop, worked at a vegetable farm for a few years. What else did I do? Got into civil construction, worked on like in the school holidays. There was this old guy who was in our area always looking for help. So I worked with him. So I did everything. I was working from when I was year 7. So was that 12 or 13 or something? That was when I started.
Like that. Yeah. So I'd just like to get a little bit of context. Now, again, I mentioned your 4 businesses. They're all in the property space. For those that don't know you, a lot of already will. You're 100 and something thousand on Instagram. I don't even know how many on TikTok. But you're one of the major faces in property in Australia, I'd say. not too many people that have achieved what you have at your age. What are you, 28? We just said before. So still not even 30. What's your property portfolio, the value of that at the moment? Last time I think it was 20 something mil. I don't
35 it was. Yeah, it's probably like, I don't know, early 40s or something now.
Yeah.
Like we obviously bought the wedding venue and haven't had everything valued recently. But my goal is 50 mil by the end of the year. So I'll have to work out how many more I got to buy.
We'll talk about all of that. I'm keen to actually spend a little bit of time talking about your personal portfolio, like how you built that step by step. Again, at the start, you were like a laborer on like 70, 75 grand a year when you bought your first property. I bought my first property
on 75 grand a year.
Exactly.
I found my group certificate the other day from my the year I purchased, which was in 2015, and my group certificate was 75,000.
Yeah. So we'll walk through the steps of that as well. I know you do a lot of, you got like your accelerator program. You work with a lot of like in real estate investors. So I want to talk about all of that.
Yeah.
But before we do, I'd love to start with your businesses. Now, you only started the business that you're working in now, 5 years ago?
2020, 2021, yeah.
2020, 2021. Talk to me about the journey and what a summary of the last 5 years, what that's looked like and where the business is at the moment.
Summary from the last 5 years. So the core business started out as Henderson Advocacy, which was a traditional buyer's agency. We help people buy homes and investment properties. And we actually started out in the owner-occupier marketplace in the eastern suburbs. So I worked inside of another agency for 12 months and was a contractor there. So that when I left mining and construction, that's where I went. Never spoke to anyone on the phone before. Like I'd never done sales. I was so rough around the edges. It's quite funny now looking back on. But I worked there for 12 months, become their highest performer within 12 months, which was pretty cool. Ended up parting ways with those guys. Started Henderson I'm pretty sure it was the start of 2020. What year did COVID hit? That was the start.
2020.
2020.
Yeah.
So it was the start of 2020 then. So I started that in 2020. Oh no, it was 2021. It was 2021. The January of 2021 is when I hired Sam Black. Yep. So, yeah, man. So 4 years-ish since then. We started off with myself, Sam Black, who was my videographer. That was my first ever hire. And I had 2 young guys who were on the phones for me. And since then, man, it's grown into like a 100-person operation. We'll do 25 million in revenue this year. And for a service-based business who doesn't sell a product, like it's a fucking big chunk of rev. And man, it's been up and down. It's been up and down.
It always is, right?
First year was an absolute banger. Like absolutely crushed it. Thought I was a fucking superstar. Didn't realize how much COVID helped me. Following year was still a very good year.
This is easy, eh?
I know. I was like, fucking business. What do you mean? You just fucking talk to people online and you make money.
Yeah.
Then third year in was very, very challenging. That was like 2023. Got hammered in the media. Business dropped by 30%, like in terms of overall revenue dropped by 30%. That means profit completely evaporated, went to zero, probably negative. And then built back from there to where it is right now. The business has grown. So we went from a traditional buyer's agency where we were servicing investors and owner occupiers to now much more of an advisory firm as opposed to a buyer's agency. We have a buyer's agency component, but people don't come to us just to go buy them properties. It's all around.
So what's the difference between like, when you say like strategic and like, I imagine it's like a strategic approach and advocacy, what are you actually doing? So what's the value in working with you guys? Like what's your IP that you think makes you guys different?
Yeah. So the main reason people work with us is because they want a roadmap to get to wherever the fuck they want to go. Anyone can go buy a property and most people will do very well if they just go buy a good property in a good location to hold it for a long period of time. But I think where the clients see value in what we do more than anyone else, and to be super upfront, we are minimum 2 times more expensive than our nearest competitor. And for most people, we're like 3 times the cost. Notice I said cost there, not value. So we're 3 times, more expensive. And people come to us because they say, hey, Jack and team, this is where I am right now. This is where I want to be. This is the time frame that I have. This is what I have to work with in terms of capital, income, blah, 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 blah. Show me how to do it. So then we build out custom portfolio plans. They then get to work with all of my personal team in terms of brokers, in terms of accountants, in terms of legal representatives and anyone else that we need to be able to structure their portfolio correctly. Then we have the advocacy piece, which is what am I buying? Where am I buying? And we've vertically integrated a full construction arm that only services our clients. So to do renovations and developments and any value add work, we only service our clients. Then we have asset management on the back end. So, once you buy a property, you then have to have it managed and then you make sure that your property is getting valued consistently in terms of how much it's worth. So you know how much equity you've got, making sure that obviously you're getting maximum rent. And then we have a finance arm on the front end to make sure that people are getting
like a one-stop shop.
Yeah. So that's why people come to us is like, if a lot of people, you just asked the question before. I was like, fuck, if I have a business and I don't know what to do, who do I go and see, right? You've either got to go see 5 or 6 different people, go see a mortgage broker, and then the mortgage broker asks, oh, how do you want to buy the property, personal name or trust? You're like, what the fuck's a trust? And you got to go see an accountant. Those people probably don't know each other. So it's like really disjointed and fragmented where we're, we're in, most of your listeners are like e-com, yeah?
E-com, yeah.
So it'd be like going to one place for an e-com business where they're like, hey, I can run your ads, I can get your customers, I can then pack your orders, I can send your orders, I can do all the client, like it's like that whole journey.
Yeah. So you mentioned you're 2 to 3 times more expensive, right? Mm-hmm. Does that mean you're only dealing with people with, millions in the bank account, or do you work with people on their first property? So
we work with a lot of business owners, like a lot of our clientele are business owners, or they're aspirational business owners, meaning that they're young people, who might be 18, 19, 20, 22 years old, whatever it is. They've saved up, they've worked hard, and they've got this big chunk of cash. And when I say big chunk of cash, in comparison to where they are in life. Mm-hmm. And they want to work with the right team. So when I started, I worked with a guy by the name of Chris Gray. He was, the blue chip, served all the high-end clients, but I was like, I want to be one of the people that he services on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. So if I want to be like one of those people, I want to work with him as opposed to like, some other punter. And it's the same as us. So our core clientele is business owners. They're doing $300,000 to $500,000 minimum net profit. Mm-hmm. And they've got a lot of serviceability and they want to scale a portfolio. Yeah. But the people who are not them want to be like them. So that's why they work
exactly.
with us.
So what's the minimum amount someone's like, fuck, I've worked hard the last 3-4 years. I've got, I've saved a bit of money every year. What's the minimum amount people sort of need in the bank account to hit up a Henderson and be like, look, let's help me grow this?
It depends on who they are. So if they're a first home buyer, you'd probably need $100,000, I'd say, by the time you pay deposit, our fee and all the rest of it. If they're not a first home buyer, it'd be more because you wouldn't get concessions like stamp duty, exemptions and no lender's mortgage insurance and low deposits and stuff like that.
We'll talk about all the property stuff, but I feel like it's really easy with you because everyone wants to know what Jack knows about property to skip over the fact that you built a $25 million business in less than 5 years.
Yeah.
Pretty fucking crazy. Like not many people, regardless of the industry, unless they've got some serious like VC investment can scale a business that quickly.
Puppy's bootstrapped, brother.
She's for better or for worse,
she's just money in.
Yeah. So what do you think's the main some of the main principles that you worked by that allowed you to scale the business to that extent in such a short amount of time?
Funny, I'm speaking at Scott's College tonight to all of the year 10, 11, 12 students at a careers evening.
It's a different demographic.
Well, that's what they asked me. They're like, what do you do to grow a business? I was like, fuck, I don't know what I did to grow a business. So I just did slides about this so I can talk about it. It's fresh on my brain. So from the very start of me starting in the industry, I didn't hire an EA. I didn't hire, an assistant. I didn't hire any of those people. I hired a videographer. Because I know how powerful brand is.
Yeah.
So my first hire was a videographer.
So smart.
It was definitely
particularly seeing what has happened since you started, right? And
Steve Jobs is much easier to connect the dots when you're looking in hindsight, right? So like now looking back on that, I've been creating content now for 5 or 6 years. And I was creating content before I got into the industry. And now that's the thing that separates people like me from other people in the industry. Been in those industries the same amount of time. Some would say maybe have the same amount of knowledge, but no one knows who they are. And that's the most important thing.
And like we have this conversation all the time, whether it be with the brands I'm mentoring, whether it be with other e-com founders. It doesn't matter the industry. You're in property or in e-com. Content is arguably the most important element of the whole process.
Yeah. Well, Jay Wright, I'm assuming.
Of course, yeah.
He's one of my clients, right? So Jay Wright's smart with ads. Lots of people are smart with ads. Why is Jay Wright making the money he's money? It's because people know who he is, right? Yeah. He puts content out there and he's grown to whatever he's grown to.
100%.
And that's in e-com and it's no different to any other industry. If you look at product-based industries, the reason Louis Vuitton is Louis Vuitton and Hermes is because, I don't know, arguably, are they better than someone else? I don't fucking know. I'm not into handbags, but I know that they're 50 times more expensive than anything else because it's the brand, right? And when you have something like that, you affiliate it with status and, it makes you feel good and it makes you look rich and all the rest of it.
100%.
So that's what I've really focused on is like brand is the king. And it will only become more and more important as time goes on because with now AI, and AI wasn't around when I started, in the industry, but AI is here now and most things are going to become commoditized over a period of time. It's like, the ones that have a brand to be the ones that will be not impacted, but impacted the least. Yeah, the least.
Exactly.
So that was a big one. And then obviously hiring great people was an incredible one. That's no news to most people. You hire really good people, but
how do you hire? Are you having a little phone call about someone on a trial shift before you started? Like, what are you looking for
Yeah, it's a good question.
In a good hire in your
I'm not a good
space?
hire. Jack Henderson's not a good hirer. So in the early years of the business, like if you were at the bus stop and you wanted a job, I was like, fuck yeah, let's go. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. And then I was very bad at firing. Like I'm terrible at firing because I just feel bad. I'm like, oh,
you come across as the type of guy that would be good at firing.
Nah, I actually have a soft spot for a lot of people. I feel sorry for a lot of people. Even though I've got this front on social media, like I genuinely feel sorry for people. And I don't know why, but I'm like, fuck, that guy's doing it tough. I like it, whatever it is. So I was bad at firing people because I'm like, you are so shit, but maybe I can make you less shit. Gianni, my general manager now, is a fucking absolute bulldog. CEO of a global organization before he come back to Australia and fuck knows why he stuck around with me. But hiring good people is a funny thing because you don't know what hiring a good person is until you hire a good person. So like everyone talks about hiring a good person, but like when you actually hire a good person, it's not like a 1 or 2 or 3x return on their salary. It's like a fucking 50x return. And that's when our business really started to grow. It was like when we got just by chance, some really key hires. They put the effort in, they've got experience, they can see things that I couldn't see. They pick up the pieces behind me because I'm very erratic and that's what made the biggest difference with us.
What were the key hires? Were they operational in terms of the structure or were they like gun salespeople?
So yes, there was a few. So a gun salesperson, which got me from, because when you start a business,
you're doing it all, right?
I'm doing the buying, I'm doing the prospecting, I'm doing the content, I'm doing the sales calls, I'm doing fucking everything, right? So my time was just fully absorbed with the day-to-day. And we got to like $4 million revenue with maybe 5 or 6 people.
That's good, yeah.
And mate, like it was 56% net margin. It was crazy. And we weren't spending any money on advertising outside of organic content. And but I couldn't do any more.
What's your organic content budget? How much do you spend on content creation?
Oh, fuck.
You don't know?
A lot. I don't know. I spend.
But my point is, whatever you spend for the amount of views, if you added up the views you get across a year,
it's crazy. Yeah. It's fucking, I mean, in terms of staff, I probably spend. We got maybe like 400 grand, 450 grand on staff. And then I don't know how much equipment and shit we buy, but it's a decent chunk. And then I spend about 250 a month on ads. So. Whatever that works out to 3 million off. But it never started like that. Like, fuck, I remember when I spent $500 a day on ads. I'm like, oh, what the fuck's happening? You know, you don't get a return straight away. So yeah, the key hires was a salesperson that got me off the sales calls and was better at selling than I was. The same thing. I used to get to on a sales call and I'd be like, oh, okay. So, all right, guys, I'll leave that with you and we'll, let me know if you want to work together. And then you get actual salespeople who do it for a living and they're like, hey, you know,
they're like killers on the clothes.
Well, they get people to sign up straight away and they pay all the money straight away. I'm like, what the fuck? I couldn't do that. So again, it's like, you don't realize they're good or you don't realize you hired a good person into the department. So that was the first key one was like, wow, these people are better at selling than I am. I have better product knowledge, but they can sell. Operations, so like general manager was a big one because again, like when you're in the doing every single day, there's so many things that don't get actioned and like your staff aren't getting managed from a performance point of view because I'm so worried about my own performance so the business doesn't fall down.
That's something that I struggled with as well, right? Like when you have a growing team, it's like, fuck, you know, your actual role outside of managing everyone else, you've got the most important jobs. You're so worried about that. Can be a real like stretching, like growth thing you need to go through to realize, fuck no, the first and foremost thing I need to do is help all these people. And then I do that shit, but it can be really conflicting in your head, particularly when you're a young entrepreneur. I started the business when I was 24 as well.
Well, you don't know, right? Because I was like, if I stop working and stop doing things, we stop having like bringing in income. And then when you get someone who's better at managing people, better at getting things into you know momentum than you are, managing projects, setting up things like you know team huddles and like just shit that I didn't know. So I was a fucking construction worker. I don't think people get that. Like a lot of people don't get that. Like, mate, 1 year I was fucking on the shovel and the next year I'm a buyer's agent. It was like so weird. So that was a really key one. General manager, sales manager, which was key. You know, EA is obviously super important just to do all like, you know, shit like preparing slides and getting back to this and booking that appointment and just shit that I would look at the emails and be like, oh, that's too much. Bye.
I feel you.
And then just like all the other people, like the cool thing is now we've got enough people that we have a culture. When there's only like 3 or 4 of you, the culture is like the founder, right? It's like we're like the founder or we're not like the founder. Where now we have a culture that even if I wasn't in, and I'm not in the office every single day because I'm traveling and doing shit, I go back to the office and it's like I never left. That's a cool thing. People come in for trials and people, you know, self-select themselves out of the business and that's culture. It's like you're either in and you know what we're doing and the mission we're on and how hard we work or you're not in and that's totally fine. But I don't have to make those decisions now. The team make them.
If you've ever dreamt of building a business that gives you time, location, and financial freedom, then listen up. As you know, 7 years ago, I was stuck in a soul-crushing 9-to-5, grinding away for someone else's dream. Fast forward to today, and I've built Happy Skin Co into a brand that have made millions of dollars in profit, but more importantly, I've helped students like Rio, Claudia, Luke, and Chris build brands that now make 10, 50, and even 100,000 per month. While most programs hand you a series of videos and wish you luck, I give you direct access to me. Actual one-on-one mentorship, not group Zoom calls with dozens of strangers, not a pre-recorded course with no feedback. Real-time coaching, tailored advice, and personal check-ins. You'll speak with me and my coaches every month. That's 2 one-on-one calls every single month. We'll walk you through your exact business, product, and ad strategy. You'll get hands-on help when you hit roadblocks, confusion, or feel overwhelmed. You'll always know your next move because I'm guiding you step by step. So if you're serious about building a brand that allows you to quit your job within 6 months, hit the link in the show notes or go to lifestylebrands.io to apply now. But remember, spots are extremely limited as you'll be speaking directly with me. Anyway, so speaking on that, and I think it's like, it's such an over like spoken about thing, but I still don't think people really get it. What you've built. So tell me about, what's your work schedule been like over the last, say, 4 years? Are you taking all your weekends off? You're doing 6, 8 hour days?
No,
what is it taken in terms of like sacrifice?
I work 7 days a week, every day, every week, and have done for fucking 5 or 6 years. And when I say 7 days a week, I don't mean getting up, putting my uniform on, going on the fucking stand at the office for 12 hours and then going home. Like working 7 days a week is on Saturdays, I'm in the office, like every Saturday. You leave the office, I'm still shooting content at home. Sunday, I'll wake up, I fucking will have a meeting with a potential staff member, or I'll go for breakfast with a current staff member, or I'll go and catch up with a client. And, we had this wedding venue getting constructed over the last 2 years. So I've been up there every fucking weekend, without fail. So like that's the work.
Sick, by the way.
It's mad. It's unreal. And I love being up there.
Is that your biggest single asset that you own, or your
from a dollar point of view?
Yeah.
I've got a few things worth like 5 mil, 6 mil, but that's probably worth. I mean, we paid 5.5 for that. We spent 1.5, $2 million on it. I don't know. Give it 12 months.
How much land is it?
1,500 acres.
1,500.
Yeah.
Wow.
Big property. But a lot of it's not used.
Of course,
we use 150 acres of it, and the rest of it's just will be arable and cleared. And but yeah, that's that now, and it will be, and that's the strategy now from a property point of view. We're digressing, but it's very much active investment. So like we're looking at another venue already. Yeah. Because we can combine my real estate knowledge and my love for real estate and sales and marketing and bring them together to.
Yeah. So let's talk about property, right? Again, why everyone wants to hear from you now. What's the topic on everyone's lips at the moment? I think it's starting to hit businesses across different industries are starting to sort of feel a bit of a pinch. But what's your take on the cost of living crisis that is gripping Australia at the moment? Or so they say.
Yeah, so I don't believe it's like a cost of living crisis, because the term cost of living crisis essentially means that the cost of living, in my eyes, it means that the cost of living has become out of hand for everyone, and we're not going well. When that's not factually true. Like a lot of people are doing it tough, but a lot of people in lots of economies, regardless if it's now, 10 years ago, 50 years before that, have done it tough. And you look at even the GFC. Most people, I wasn't a business owner in the GFC, and I don't say that I was around then, but in the GFC, there would have been businesses absolutely crushing it, and there would have been businesses absolutely fucking in a shambles. So yeah, it was a crisis, but it wasn't a crisis for everyone. So I think the thing with this, I think cost of living, or it's costing more, is yes, it is costing more money now to live than it did 3 years ago. There's no denying that. But it's because we had it so good for so long and nothing really moved. Like we had low interest rates, we had lots of disposable income. COVID hit, and most people were earning more money during COVID than they were when they went to work every day.
That's why everyone had like you said, fuck business is easy. The COVID boom, they went too far in one direction. They made it too easy, and now we're paying the price of all that.
And that's the
right?
thing. That's what I say. It's like, it's not a cost of living crisis. It's just the fact that if you average it out and you go like, over the last 10 years, it was easy for 7, hard for 3. Is that a crisis? No, it just means we had it too. Like you don't say the opposite when it's easy, right? You're like, this is an easy living crisis because it's fucking, there's so much money everywhere. It's just like, it is what it is. And that's just life. Like things are more expensive now than what they were. But if you then extrapolate that out and look at it on a long-term view, inflation still isn't super high over a long period of time. It's high in a very short space, but then previous to that, inflation was like very flat and non-existent. Hence the reason they lowered rates to stimulate the economy to get growth. So, people need to live within their means. And if they don't want to live within their means, then fucking don't complain. It is what it is.
I think too many people have acquired a certain taste for a lifestyle that, their finances might not be able to afford. And they say, but Dylan, a coffee's $6.50. Yeah, well, a jar of Mokona's $10 and you get 200 coffees out of it. Like, I wasn't drinking fucking cafe coffees every day when I was like on the come up.
Yeah. And if you want to, then that's awesome. There's no right or wrong, but fucking that's it.
Yeah.
And I think the thing with the whole cost of living thing, and people are like, oh, property prices are way too expensive now. Where the fuck can you afford to live in Sydney? And it's like, as any country evolves, the population gets greater, the best cities become more expensive. If you are born in the US today, do you go, I can't believe I can't afford to buy a property in New York? Of course you don't, because it's fucking New York and rich people live in New York. And in Sydney, rich people live in Sydney. And if you're not rich, then I don't give a fuck, but you can't live in Sydney. That's the end of the story. Be rich or don't live here. Like, that's how I feel. And the Gold Coast is becoming like that. And Melbourne's becoming like that. And Brisbane's becoming like that. Like, these are cities where you need to be rich. And if you're not rich, live somewhere else. Australia's a big fucking country. And then people go, oh, yeah, but what about work? Where am I going to work? Mate, fucking less than 2 years ago, it was there's no staff shortage, blah, blah. And now it's like, oh, where am I going to work? It's like there's an excuse for every fucking, if you give someone a reason or you give them a solution, there's another excuse.
So what do you think is the main message here? Because like I saw the response and overwhelmingly in the comments, a lot of people were supporting your take on like on the show Insight. But I think a lot of the other people who were giving their opinions also on the show, I think clearly fell into some form of, victim mentality or looking for excuses as to why I can't or why it's harder for me than you.
Of course. Yeah.
What's your whole like ethos on personal responsibility? And do you think it's wise for people to sit back and cross their fingers that the government will come and rescue them?
The thing that I think is, even if you have the hardest upbringing, your fucking parents that didn't love you, you had no money, you ended up with credit card debt, you had to live on your own since you were 5 years old. Who gives a fuck? The world doesn't care. That's the thing. Like, the world actually doesn't. You might care because in your own life, your story is the most important. The world doesn't care. And if the world doesn't care, then you just need to get over that. And that's the reality, because one day you're going to die and no one's going to remember you anyway. So who gives a fuck? You're not going to remember yourself because you're going to be dead. So I just think, like, if people, and because there was a part of the show where I said I don't vote, and the reason I don't vote is because I can have more impact on my life than anyone else. And everyone's like, oh, you should vote because what about everyone else? And I'm like, I don't give a fuck about everyone else. And no one cares about me. When you walk around in your day-to-day life, I don't care what anyone says. No one thinks about anyone else more than they think about themselves. You walk down the street and you go, oh, fuck, I look good in that mirror. Or, oh, I wonder what that cunt thinks about me. Or you're never thinking about other people, ever. And when you are, it's generally not good things. That's the truth. I'm like, surely I'm not the only fucker that's like that. So I was like, if you always think about yourself anyway, and your life is so self-centered around yourself, just worry about your fucking self. And if you want to vote, amazing. That's something you should do for yourself.
If not, what's $55 or something?
I don't even know.
Yeah, it's really inconsequential. I used to have that view as well. I used to think, like, I didn't really care about what was going outside of me, because I think, you know what I mean? Like, I know I have the power to shape my own life. And if everyone had that point of view, I think as a society, we'd be in a much better place. But I think, on some things politically, I do have like an opinion. I think there's a lot of things that have been done poorly with this country. But for you, politically isn't something that you're really interested either way in, right?
It's not that I'm not interested in it, right? We all have a certain amount of brain capacity and mental capacity in our life.
100%.
My mental capacity is not going to be spent on some problem that doesn't affect me. And I know that might seem selfish, but I don't care. Like, if everyone just worried about themselves, it's like, okay, what can I do to better my life? And by bettering your own life and being a bigger contributor to society, the world will be better. One of my staff members said this to me the other day after the whole SBS thing. He came in and said, oh, Jack, like, what about, fucking all these policies? And I'm like, dude, the fact that you know these policies blows my fucking mind, because I don't have enough time in my own life to know what the fuck's going on in my own life, let alone something, because that's the truth. When you are busy and you are doing shit and you have constantly things going on, you don't have time to be worried about fucking some policy. And I said, the way that I look at it is, if you worry, and I said this to my staff member, I said, if you worried about your life and how good you could be at life, how good you could I said how good you can be in your own life, and by you being good in your own life, how much you can help other people. And I used the example. I said, if I was shit, none of you fuckers would have a job.
Yep.
None of you would be earning the money that you're earning, and none of you would be able to learn from me. Mm-hmm. So am I having a bigger contribution to this earth by me being good, which makes you good, or voting for some fuckwit who doesn't do anything to anyone? Mm-hmm. I'm like, you tell me. And he's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I was like, just concentrate on your own life, cunt. That's it. And then by you being amazing, you will just make the world an incredible place.
100%. The people that are in the position to create the most amount of real impact are the people that have money, whether you like it or not, right? It's a fact. There's some government like budgets things that came out that I know you've made some content around that I want to get your thoughts on. But it's like when people are waiting, the government stepped in and what was it, the $750 a week, everyone was getting COVID. Everyone's like, yeah, sweet. The government always just step in and fix it. Well, they tried to fix it. Now they fucked it up, a few years later. But so the budget, what was it? So the government budget tax cuts for, I think, from about $18,000 of earnings to about $40,000 of earnings. It's like a 1% cut.
Yeah, you go from paying 16% to 15% in that tax bracket.
So when it comes to the end of the day and you're doing your tax return, what sort of difference is that going to be over a year? How much are they saving?
Oh, it's like, I think I did the video, and the example that the ATO used or the government used was like a salary, a combined income of $170,000 a year would end up with an extra, it was like $2,000 or $1,000 or something in their bank account at the end of the day. I'm like, what the fuck does that even mean? Like $1,000, and I'm like, and what I thought was, because people will vote based on that thing. Oh yeah, I want extra money in my bank because again, it's like everyone, that's the funny thing. They say to me, in that you look at the comments, you're so selfish, you only think about yourself. But then people vote for people because of their own fucking issues. So are you being selfish or are you just?
But what they don't understand, which blows my mind, is like nothing is for free. If you're going to get an extra $2,000 between you and your partner, that's not fucking for free. You will pay for it in other ways. You just can't see it right now.
It's just like you're like the thing that I saw. I think I put at the end of the video that I did the other day. It was like, there's all these amazing incentives and the government's going to change things, which is great, but then they have no way to pay for that. Like if you cut taxes, essentially what you're doing, if we're talking about business, if you cut taxes, you're cutting your revenue. Mm-hmm. That's what you're doing. So if you're cutting your revenue and you still want to keep your margins the same, or you don't want to go into a deficit, so you're not losing money, you have to get money from somewhere else. You either have to sell more shit, you have to export more goods from Australia, for example, or you have to put a tax somewhere else and fucking reap it. It's like, I don't know, bro. It's fucking funny.
Even when they don't do that, like inflation essentially is a tax anyway.
Yeah, it's an invisible tax.
Mm-hmm. It affects everyone, right? And who does it affect? The people who are most excited for their extra $268 a year with that extra 1% that they're going to get back. It's going to affect them first, and they just don't see it and don't understand it yet. So I want to get your thoughts on a couple of things. Overall on that budget, do you fucking pay no much attention to it? It's sort of your job to know a little bit about the property stuff.
The property stuff was the Help to Buy scheme is going to go, it's going to increase the salaries are going to increase for the Help to Buy scheme, so you can earn more money and still qualify for the scheme. And the Help to Buy scheme is essentially the scheme where the government takes an equity stake in your property. Mm-hmm. So for example, you're a single mum or you're a single dad, or you're someone who can't get together all the money you need for a 5 or a 10% deposit. And you can't afford a mortgage of 100% as well. So the government comes in and takes, I believe, a maximum of 40%, I think it is. So you own 60, they own 40. And you can go in with as little as a 2% deposit, and then you'd only be liable for the 60% of the mortgage during that period of time, which makes it easy to buy a home. So amazing.
You're a fan of that?
I think it's good for some people. Mm-hmm. Most people, like a lot of people won't use it, but I think it's good for some people. So like, that single mum, for example, who is working a ring off, can't really save a lot of money because she's got fucking all the expenses that you have with kids and all the rest of it. For her to be able to save a 2% deposit and only be liable for 60% of a mortgage would then work out roughly the same as what she's paying in rent, for example, or a single dad or whatever it is. So I think it's amazing for those types of people.
Yeah.
Because people feel more secure in their own home than they do a rental. And that's just,
are there ways to buy out the government in the future?
Yeah, that's right. You can. Yeah. So for example, you earn more money, your kids move out of home, you've got more surplus, you get a partner all of a sudden, you can buy them out. Yeah. not at the price that they pay.
Yeah, that'd be fucking
People
nice.
be like, bro, I did a video on it when it first came out and people were like, oh, so the fucking government's trying to make money off you? I'm like, oh my gosh, you people are fucking retarded.
Yeah, there's really goes to both spectrums, right? Another thing that I see getting called out quite a bit is like foreign ownership in Australia.
The dumbest shit ever.
Do you feel like it affects it negatively, positively?
Zero.
Okay.
There
why
is less than 1% of all transactions in Australia on a yearly basis are foreign. And the properties that they buy are not properties that everyday punt it. They're not buying a fucking house in Cabramatta. All right? They're not buying a house in Brisbane or Perth. That's not what foreign buyers buy.
Yeah.
They either buy really expensive real estate, although generally will buy, brand new off the plan type of shit, which people shouldn't buy anyway. So it's like it's less than 5,000 transactions a year. And for context, there are 550,000 transactions in Australia a year.
So it's just a fun talking point that people like to cling on to, essentially.
It's for fucking idiots who are racist and they hate foreign investment. Well, the fucking Chinese people buying all of our property. Bro, I don't know how many times I've heard that. And then I'm like, oh, do you actually know how many Chinese?
The way they speak about it, it's like it feels like there's like 10, 20% of transaction and it's creating this property bubble that will burst.
And the government know that, right? It's marketing. It's like, oh, foreign will stop. And they stop it for
2 years, right?
What the fuck is that going to do?
What is it even going to do? Yeah. Another one of your more controversial takes, but I love the way you talk about this is a lot of people will claim, Jack, it's impossible to buy a property in New South Wales now, right?
Of course.
In your opinion, is it easier or harder than ever before to get into the property market?
It's easier because you've never needed a lower deposit from a percentage point of view. So like a 5% deposit. And I said that on this show. It's like the only thing easier than saving a 5% deposit is if they give it to you for free. That's it.
Cross your fingers, right? The Victorian socialist movement.
I'm ready, man. I got my eyes open. I'm like, come here, give me all the property for free.
Oh, dude, it's crazy. Let's talk about some of those.
It's never been easier.
Let's talk about some of the incentives for first home buyers. So it's
different in every state, just to preface it. But most
of our listeners are from New South Wales. If you're not, apologies.
Yeah. It's in Queensland. There's everywhere. They're just slightly different. But it's essentially the best one in my eyes is the first home loan deposit scheme, which is a 5% deposit. In New South Wales, the max cap for full concession is up to $800,000.
Yep.
You can buy a lot of properties for $800,000 in New South Wales, in Sydney included. You pay no stamp duty, which means 35, 40 grand you would pay at 800, you don't pay at all. And you pay no lender's mortgage insurance, which is an insurance you give to the bank when you get a loan if you 20%? Put down less than the 20% deposit. Yeah, for a standard borrower, if you're a medico or a lawyer or something, you get these special things. But if you're a punter like us, you'd have to pay 20%. So it's like you have 5%, you go into a $600,000 property, for example, you need 30 grand.
If you can't save 30 grand in
for
even 3 years, I saved 10 grand a year when I was straight out. I didn't go to uni when I was on my first, 50 grand a year job.
Yeah. I mean, the people I understand that it's hard are.
No, I understand it's hard, and I'm not sorry to cut you off. I understand it's hard, and I'm like not putting out all the content to you and having such a strong point of view. But if you fucking can't get your shit together, you're just giving excuses for yourself.
Yeah.
I'm not this person that's like, you're a fucking idiot, you're a loser. But it's like at the end of the day, it's not that difficult to save 30 grand. If you can't save 30 grand, and I'm not talking about the single mom with 3 kids and has to pay rent, but it's like for the most of the people listening to this podcast, you're either in your late 20s, early 30s doing quite well already, and maybe this isn't to you, or it's like you're 21, 22, 23, working different sales jobs, whatever. Fuck, if you can't save 15 grand a year.
It's easy.
You know what I mean?
If you're young and you have no commitments, it only gets harder as life goes on.
Exactly.
You get more life baggage.
But Jack, I don't want to live where I can buy. That's another excuse, right?
Well, you don't have to. You don't have to. You can rent there and you can go and invest somewhere else. And they go, oh, yeah, but you don't get the first home buyer incentives. Buy the fucking house and leave it vacant for a year. I don't know. Or rent out some bedrooms or some shit. Fuck. There's many ways to skin the cat. You know?
You did an example, and I know I'm putting all this, because I've just fucking watched 100 of your videos this morning in preparation for this. So I'm putting you on the spot here. You might not remember the numbers, but you did an example where for someone earning 75.
This is the example I'm living right now.
Right.
I'm living.
Give me an example.
I changed my salary in my company to $75,000 a year.
Yeah.
I'm getting $2,300 net a fortnight or something.
So
like that.
what was it? I had notes here somewhere. So
the example was, because off the back of that show, people were like, how do you save a fucking? And then I'm like, all right, I'm gonna show these people. So I went back to when I was 18. I found my group certificate, like I mentioned, and I was earning $75,000 a year.
Cheers, mum.
This is back in, literally, she added. This is back in 2015. So $75,000 back then is not the same as now, but I'm still going to do it on 75 now. So $2,300 net a fortnight is what I'm getting paid. And essentially I've allowed $350 a week for rent, which is a room in a share house in Paddington, which is where my office is. The reason
Pretty
I'm doing
nice area.
Great area.
You had a balcony in that photo I was looking at.
Yeah, it's
Pretty fucking
it's
good.
a ripper.
Yeah.
So $350 a week for rent. That includes bills as well. And it's not just like a once off. There's lots of these things out there.
Yep.
I allowed, I think it was $80 a week for fun, which doesn't get you much. I get that, but I'm saving for a deposit in less than 12 months. So I'm like going really aggressive to show that if you sacrifice for 1 year of your life, you can do it. My groceries I originally had $100 a week for. Super underestimated that. It's actually it's $200 a week for groceries.
I go get a basket from the shops. It's nearly $100.
Dude, I haven't shopped for a few years, right? So it's quite funny. Everyone was going like, you won't fucking buy anything for $100. And then I got in and I was like, I'll show you these motherfuckers.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
you,
all right, what am I getting? Went to the Chobani yogurt. It was $15 for a tub. I'm like, fuck me.
Yeah.
Blueberries like $5. I'm like, I've just used 2 days groceries with 2 items. I'm like, I'm gonna have to increase that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was $200 a week for groceries. I don't know, I had fuel money allowed in there. Anyway, I did all this shit. And I was like, in my mind, I was like, and this is what I did when I was young. I was like, I want to live as close as possible to work. So I have low cost to get to and from work, like low travel costs. I want to spend no money on shit that I don't need, again, for 12 months. And you live frugally for 12 months because once you do it once, you never have to do it again. You just buy a property and then it grows and then you can go blow your money and piss it up against it.
So what's the standard process people take? Because I think a lot of people listening, whether they have businesses or not, probably pulling somewhere between 75 and 150, right? What's the general process people go through? And we'll talk about your property investment journey yourself in a second. But people come in, they're ready to start investing. As I said, they've got say 100 grand saved. They've been saving for the last 5, 10 years, whatever it takes. And they're ready to start making these moves. Because some of the ways you break it down, you get in the door with one property in 3 years, you can use that to get another one. So what does that process look like for those that maybe aren't already aware of the property investing journey? Because a lot of people that listen to this podcast are just all in on business and e-com and they don't really think about those other things yet, which is fine. I've spent way more of my focus on, like, as you said before, we only have so much time in the day.
Yeah.
I've spent so much of my focus on businesses and less on this stuff. So I've obviously got property, but I don't understand it to your extent.
Yeah.
What does that process look like for someone that wants to get in the door with the view of, hey, I've got this amount of money. I'm going to buy one property now, but I want to have 3 in the next 5 or 6 years. What does that journey look like?
Yeah. So the big thing that you're going to hear in property, or if you listen to any investing stuff, is a term called serviceability, which is essentially just fancy word for borrowing capacity. How much money the bank will lend you based on how much you earn.
Yeah.
And that's the constraint for most people. When you buy one, you generally don't have any debt before you buy it. So that you're going to have your max borrowing capacity on that particular income. Now, if your income doesn't grow, the next time you go to buy a property, you may have this thing called equity, which is your property value versus what it's worth. Your property value today versus what you paid for it. So that gap is called equity. You may have the equity you need for a deposit on the next property, but then you go back to the bank and they go, oh, your income's the same. Sorry, we're not going to lend you any money because you don't have the borrowing capacity to allow you to do that. That's the biggest constraint for every investor. But once you've got your first property, that property just grows naturally in the marketplace. Some years it grows a lot, some years it grows less, some years it goes backwards. It's just the marketplace. But eventually you'll have enough equity, which is, like I said, the gap between the value of it today and what you paid for it. And that money can be used for the deposit and the costs on your next property. You don't have to save any more money. The property does the full savings for you. And then you go back to the bank and you go, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Bank Manager or broker, whoever it is, I want to buy my next property. I have enough equity in my property. Can I get another loan?
How does that serviceability work? Let's just say someone, which I know you're not a fan of, we'll talk about in a second, has an owner OC, and then they've got all the equity. They might have created hundreds of thousands of dollars of equity in their current property. They also have another couple hundred grand in the bank account for a deposit, ready to go buy the next one. The next one's going to be an investment property. So the plan is obviously to have rental income on that. If it's a owner OC versus an investment, and you're going to get rental income in that, how does that affect the way the bank sees your serviceability?
So I guess in the most black and white way to say it is the bank just looks at what is your total liabilities, which is how much debt do you have, both asset backed being property debt and personal liabilities, credit cards, or all the rest of it. How much debt do you have and how much money do you earn? So let's say it's $150,000 income. And then they have formulas that they use inside of the bank, things called debt to income ratio. So like how much debt will we lend you based on your income? Some banks will lend you 5 or 6 times your income in debt. Some banks will only lend you 4 times in debt. There's so many variances to it, but I just use a general rule of thumb as like, how much do you earn? 150 grand. The bank will lend you about 5 times that amount. So If you earn 150, you can borrow 750 in debt.
Yeah.
If you've already got a $500,000 mortgage on your owner occupier, you can't buy another property, unfortunately. If you don't, then you can buy a property. And then there's all, structuring and how to maximize your serviceability. And obviously, if you're buying an investment property versus an owner occupier property, inside of your serviceability calculations, you have rental income to add to it as well as your own income, so you can borrow more money. But that's essentially the simplest way I can explain it, which is how much do you earn, and the bank will lend you generally
say four to five times as a general guide.
Yeah.
And when it comes to people really accelerating the property growth, and one of your strategies is the accelerator program, right? I don't know if that's the strategy or it's one of your strategies.
Yeah.
How does that work, and what's sort of the general approach to that? Because I know you put out a lot of content around that people can go and, jump on your YouTube or Instagram and fucking learn a lot just from there.
Yeah.
But what does that look like? What is the accelerator program?
The accelerator is accelerating the value of an asset, right? So generally when you buy an asset, you're then at the mercy of the marketplace, how much the market's moving, and that's based on lots of external factors that you don't control. The accelerator strategy just allows us to add value to the property in the short term through a renovation or some sort of value add to manufacture the growth now. And then naturally the value of the asset grows. Hopefully your debt remains the same, and that creates equity, which allows you to buy sooner.
So are you more of a fan of as people start to, increase the number of properties they have? Maybe they're not at the position where you have your own building company that does all the renters and stuff for you. But so if you're looking at someone's, maybe 2 or 3 properties and starting to just add one at a time, they're not doing any crazy developments or anything like that.
Yeah.
You look for buildings or properties where it's not brand new that you can reno, or
we want to buy established property. And there's a few reasons for that. One of the reasons is established properties are generally in the best locations. If you look at where we are now in Sydney, everything's established other than new apartments, because they bowl over things and build apartments. But any house or dwelling is established. And if you look at all the brand new stuff, it's a long way from the major hubs. So you're getting better quality land or land that's worth more money. Obviously, the dwelling itself is fully depreciated. If something's 80 years old, the actual house itself isn't worth much money because everything's old as fuck, which means all of the value or the big chunk of the value that you're paying for the property is in the land, which is what appreciates over time. And then that gives you the ability to make it look pretty and obviously make some money in the process of doing so. The challenges with that in recent times is the cost of construction has dramatically increased.
Massively, right?
So it's made it.
Has that leveled off at all? Because it exploded throughout COVID. Is it starting to normalize? Because at the end of the day, competitive market, if everyone's taking the piss and someone's like, okay, our costs have gone down, now I'm going to go roll back prices.
So
eventually it'll correct, right?
Yeah, what's happened is that the marketplace exploded. There was way more work than there was people to fulfill on that work. And now all the work's dried up. And naturally, builders and trades have to get way more competitive to win work, right?
Yeah.
So material costs have come down a little bit, but where they are now is where they'll stay until the next sort of inflationary period. But trades are way more competitive now because there isn't this abundance of work out there because people need to tighten their belts, right? So same thing during COVID. What was that fucking scheme? It was renovate your property and we'll give you fucking how many dollars?
I don't know.
Do you remember that? It was crazy. It was if you renovate your property for up to a certain dollar figure, the government would give you. It was the dumbest shit I've ever heard.
What was the idea behind that?
Stimulate the economy, get work out there, we'll give you X amount of dollars if you spend this money on you. It was fucking wild.
To do that strategy, right? And it's not even necessarily flipping, which I don't know your opinion on people that flip, but if you're going to buy it, renovate it, then have it hold the asset, do you have to be a builder to do that? Or you think you can still do it well if you just.
There's lots of people that do it by themselves. I am the most least capable person with my hands you've ever met. I couldn't fucking bang a nail in a wall.
You'll fit in with us.
I'm terrible. And I've never done any work to any property myself. I've always paid for it.
Same.
When you can do it yourself, it makes more money naturally because, you still have to pay for your own time, but you're not actually forking out that money out of your pocket. So, a lot of people will learn how to paint and how to fucking tile a splashback and how to, demo shit and do
Look, it's fun and it's fun to learn, but I just don't have the time.
Yeah, I fucking hate it. It's the worst.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love the outcome, but I hate doing it.
Yeah.
I love to look at it and I'm like, fuck this.
So another question I'm sure you get all the time. And I was just
thinking, sorry, to answer your question.
Yep.
Yes, you can make good money. Flipping, very, very, very hard to make work unless you are a builder or you are a tradie yourself. Because you can do the work cheaper than the average punter. But if you're out there paying retail prices for things, by the time you add in your holding cost, your buying cost of stamp duty, your selling cost of selling fees and capital gains tax, you would have been better off just fucking working at Macca's.
Another thing that I learned today, looking through your content, is how much like stamp duty and property related like taxes and gives is
Lots.
income for the economy. What is it like as a percentage?
Oh fuck, it's huge.
Yeah,
like
it's massive.
The stamp duty, it's a huge percentage of total like Australia's total revenue.
Yeah, it was like fucking like 60 billion or like something like
I don't know the exact number, but it was a I remember doing a video on it when
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
much fresher in my mind. But yeah, it's a big chunk, like stamp duty. And the thing with stamp duty is because the stamp duty rates have not changed, the government's getting a pay rise every time property values increase, right? Because stamp duty becomes a greater cost because it's a percentage of the overall value of the asset. So 4% of $1 million property is a lot more than 4% of $500,000 property, right? As property values grow, stamp duty revenue increases.
Yeah. What I was going to say before is we've talked a bit about, residential stuff. What people are like, I see all the time. I started listening to your last podcast on YouTube, which I was really enjoying. I got probably 20 minutes or so into that. Is Jack, what's the next hotspot? Right. I know your ethos, and something that I really remembered and took away from our last podcast was, with whatever your budget is, buy the best property you can as close to that blue chip area as you can, right? That's the safest way. If you're going to hold their asset for 5, 10, 15 plus years, you're always going to do well.
Yeah.
Are there any hotspot areas or states or regions that you think are opportunities to make quicker money over the next 5 years, or does that just go against the way that you invest?
I think Victoria is a place where there's opportunity now because it's had like a huge lag period. It was the strongest performing, so Melbourne was the strongest performing city in Australia for 25 years, up until 2022, I believe. And since then, there was some land tax changes and the market's really lagged. Naturally, it lagged because people are like, I'm not fucking paying the extra land tax, but then it becomes normal and people forget it even exists.
Yeah.
So that marketplace is a marketplace which is cheaper now than Adelaide, cheaper now than Perth, which is fucking bizarre because it's a major city.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow,
so I think that market will see some short-term, really strong short-term growth. But the reason I'm saying, it's not a hotspot as such, but there's probably some quick wins there because it's not normal for it to be cheaper than these other places.
And how far are you talking about from the city in terms of Ks from the CBD, you reckon?
I mean, if you've got a budget of say 600 to 800 grand, you can get into somewhere like Geelong, which is like an hour and a half from Melbourne. So it's not really Melbourne, it's Victoria. It's a regional hub. You can get into somewhere like Frankston, which is maybe 45 minutes from the city. And you can actually get closer to the city as well. But same strategy applies. Good quality property, close to the water, which Geelong and Frankston are, not brand new, established, all the rest of it. Yep. But yeah, I mean, I don't know how long it's going to take for that market to kick, but it will eventually kick again.
And again, I have no idea. I don't own any property in Melbourne or Victoria at all, rather. Rental returns are lower down there.
Yields are lower, yeah, but because you're buying it at a lower price now, the yields aren't as bad as they once were.
Yeah.
But they're still not amazing. Like you're getting 3.5% to 4% as a gross rental yield on a standard resi asset.
What's your thoughts on, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I live in Newtown, right? So I see a lot of the wacky and wild shit, right?
Hey, all your fucking neighbours were probably on SBS.
Fuck, I recognise a few people. I see like,
they're all the people in my comments just hating me.
I moved there 5 years ago because it's a fun area to live, right?
Yeah.
But I see all the time, like, death to landlords, and like they want to do all these like rent freezes and stuff, but there's no sort of awareness around, okay, you want to do a rent freeze, mortgages keep like, interest rates keep going up. Like what's your whole
They're idiots. I don't understand.
I don't understand. Yeah.
They don't understand either. They just talk shit.
Yeah.
It's not possible to do that stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I get in the comments all the time? What's that guy who shot that fucking CEO of the healthcare guy?
Oh yes.
Gianni?
No. Joe, come on, you got it.
I always get like, they're like, why didn't you get this guy, whatever his name was? That guy. Luigi. I get that fucking, if you look at it in my comments, dude, I'm always like, you should have got him Luigi, or like.
Because the reason that popped in my head, one of the comments that I saw in one of your videos was, landlords think they, pay for the investment themselves, and, some sort of, again, like comment without any sort of zooming back and understanding the way the world works, right?
It's the dumbest shit ever. Like the thing that blows my mind is like people say, well, investors are the bane of my existence, fuck property investors. They shouldn't be able to own more than one property. But it's like, okay, let's actually play that out. Property investors are not allowed to own more than one property. Okay. So there's less demand in the marketplace and prices, let's say prices come back by 20% in the marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
Broke people still can't afford to buy the properties even if they're 20% cheaper. So what the fuck's that going to do? It just means you're not going to have anywhere to rent and there's going to be properties on the market that you can't afford to buy anyway.
Yeah, it's just so it
doesn't make any sense.
It's hard to even frame that in a question because it's just so stupid to even like dignify it with a response.
And then like, of course, property investors don't pay for their property, tenants do. That's just called fucking business. It's like, the pub doesn't fucking pay for the beer, the customers pay for it. And it's like, well, that's how business works.
Yeah. Anyway, just literally popped in my head when you were saying something like, I got to ask you about that.
Yeah, well, fucking this Gianni, whatever his name is, fucking Giuseppe, whoever it is. Yeah,
Gianni, Luigi.
Yeah. Apparently I'm fucking him and people want to get him to kill me or something.
Oh,
so.
Dude, yeah.
So if I get knocked, there you go.
Oh, fucking, yeah. You'll be the next big meme. So you just bought a 3-story office block in Newcastle.
Yeah.
I think this is probably, this question's more catered towards, some of the more success, like we got founders listening to this podcast doing really, really well. Talk to me about the strategy behind buying that office block and why for certain investors and people that obviously have like a higher income through that business, buying commercial assets can be better than buying just strictly residential.
Yeah. So I see it all the time because like I said, our clientele are business owners for the most part.
Yep.
The thing that most business owners do is they start to make a bit of dough and everyone wants a nice house, right? Because a house is a status symbol more than anything. It's like, I live here and this is my own home. So they make a bit of money. They go and buy this big home. Adam Sullivan, the fitness guy?
Yeah. We're just talking about him selling his place the other day.
Did you see the video I did on it? I did a video on it. And that's a prime example of it. It's like he's making good money. Fuck yeah, I want to go buy
It's like a $50,000 mortgage or something.
55 a month it was. Yeah, which is an $8.8 million mortgage. But it's all relative, right? Regardless if it's 55,000 a month or it's 5,500 a month. It's the same shit, same concept. So he goes and buys the house, ties up a heap of capital in it. The house is amazing for 60 days. And then it just becomes another house.
Yeah.
Like everything, right? You get a brand new car, it's sexy for fucking 2 weeks. And then all of a sudden you see the better version of the nicer car and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm poor. So that's what happens. Business owners make some money. They then go out there and buy a big home. They get a big owner-occupier mortgage that they pay for with after-tax income. And then they pay for it for the next 30 years. And as they start to make more money, they then want to upgrade that home, right? Because if you start
it's a vicious cycle, right?
It's the worst. So if you start on a $2 million home and your business doubles, you go from a $2 million home to a $10 million home. That's just what happens. Now, you can make money out of owner-occupier homes. I'm not saying you can't. You definitely can. But there is more efficient ways to do it. So if you're a business owner, regardless if you're in e-com, regardless if you're in a service-based business like we are, or you got a trucking business. I don't know. Most businesses need some sort of premises to work out of, whether it's an office, whether it's a factory, whether it's fucking something. And they rent them for the most part. Most people will rent their premises. So it's like, instead of buying your own home, why don't you go and buy the home for your business for a few reasons? One of those reasons is tenant security. It's almost guaranteed because if you are no longer the tenant, there's for 2 reasons. 1, you're growing and you need a bigger space, or 2, you've gone broke and you're fucked anyway. So you got tenant security. You pay the rent yourself, of which you can continue to increase the rent over time in line with the market, which then increases the value of your asset because that's how commercial works. You become way more tax effective because, for example, if you pull income out of your business, trading income or retained earnings or retained profit out of your business, you then pay the top-up tax to your income, whatever your income tax rate. And for the most part, you're paying 47 cents on the dollar because you're pulling out a few $100,000. So you pay the extra top-up tax on that money, then you go use it for an owner-occupier. If you're buying an asset either inside of your own business, which I probably wouldn't recommend, speak to an accountant about that, or in another company, you don't pay any more top-up tax. You can just move retained earnings from one company to another and stay within a company tax environment. And then you get the deductibility of paying yourself more rent as well, for example.
Again, saving you more on tax.
Yeah. So instead of, it just makes way more sense for a business owner to buy the home for their business as opposed to the home for themselves. And then over time, your debt decreases on your business premises. It starts becoming, more cash flow positive. It's spitting off income. Then you can use that income to go rent wherever the fuck you want to live.
And what I thought was really cool was the valuation at the start of the process when it was a fully untenanted building. If you could talk people through how
so
that
with
sort
commercial,
of changed.
if the building doesn't have a tenant, there essentially is minimal to no value in it, because if you're buying it as an investment, you need to be able to get debt on it. And to get debt, the banks need to be able to see a tenant in there. If a building doesn't have a tenant, there really is no value and no lender will lend on it unless you've got a really, really strong balance sheet. And even then they'll only lend you a very small amount of money. Where if it's fully leased and it's leased for a good amount, you got a good term on your lease, then all of a sudden they'll lend you 70%. So the office that we bought was completely vacant. It was actually worth 2/5 of fuck all to anyone else other than us. But because of that, we then got good terms. So we negotiated a 12-month option. I'm not sure, I won't explain how options work, but essentially we negotiated it under an option deed that worked for us because we didn't have to put down much cash on the exchange. And it worked for the owner because that kicked his capital gains tax down into the following financial year. We then leased the building obviously to ourselves, and then now when we go and settle, or we'll go unconditional and then settle on the building, we've bought it as a going concern, so we don't pay GST on the sale, and now it's obviously worth a lot more money because now it's a fully leased building to our own entities. So there's cool shit you can do like that, and because we're growing so rapidly, originally I was like, we'll occupy one floor, lease out the other 2 floors. And now I'm like, oh, fuck, we're going to need the whole building. So I've actually leased that one floor to a yoga studio, which is what it is, but we're now going to occupy the other 2 floors.
It's not for everyone though, commercial, right? You need to have.
You generally need a little bit more capital. But if you're buying a big home, you need a lot of capital as well, right? Like you're not buying a $2 or $3 million home with fucking $2 grand.
And what are the periods of which you can pay that off? You don't have 30 years or 20.
You
whatever.
can. Loan terms are different between lenders and the kind of loan that you end up getting, but you can generally get 15 to 30 year terms.
Yeah. And so you just spoke about some of the your favorite legal tax loopholes that you can do. Are there any other ones that pop to mind?
You need to say tax loophole, it gets the viewers.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to ask you, do you have any other tax loopholes that kind of come
The biggest tax loophole is to pay your tax, because if you don't, the ATO will fucking hunt you down. And then tax loophole. So I think a lot of business owners underestimate or don't understand superannuation all that well. I'm not a financial planner, just FYI, this is just me sharing my own experience. But generally, superannuation, people look at it as this foreign thing that's somewhat controlled by the government, and they're like, why the fuck would I invest in super? Superannuation is your own money. It just gets paid by your employer. So idiots, don't waste it. Because I guarantee if that money went into most people's salaries, they would have nothing for retirement.
Fucking 100%.
So superannuation is no different to any other investment class. The only difference is it has better it's a better tax environment, and you can't access it until you're 60 at the moment. So as business owners, I think they need to use superannuation more and more, because most business owners pay themselves a low salary and probably pay themselves minimal to no superannuation. Not going to be much super then, yeah. And they do that forever, regardless of how big their business is, which means they get to 50 or 60 years old and they're like, oh, I don't have any superannuation. If you haven't done any other investing outside of super, it becomes challenging.
If you've been in business until you're 60, hopefully you've pulled some money off the table anyway.
Potentially, but mate, you'd be surprised. If people stay in their own businesses for a long period of time and don't really make all that much money, they just have bought themselves a full-time job.
So they don't have a boss, right?
Yeah, that's right. So it's they can do their own thing. But
which, to be honest, I still respect that more than working some job you hate for some dickhead you don't like.
For sure. But from a financial freedom point of view, if you're not investing, it becomes very, very challenging. So superannuation is definitely not a loophole, but it's something you need to understand how it works. And the earlier you start, the more cash is at the other end.
I was listening to some podcast and their sponsor was some property something, and they were doing a seminar on buying a property with super. Is that something you're a fan of?
Look, I'm definitely, if anyone does a seminar with buying a property in your super from a seminar, don't do it, because the reason they're telling you to do that is because you're going to get rorted. Because most people, what they do is they sell you an off the plan property or a house and land package or something in your super fund. People think it's great because they put in a small deposit now. It doesn't settle for 2 years. You don't have to show external serviceability inside of your self-managed super fund. It just goes on your contributions and the capital that you have in the fund, which means if you have lots of debt outside of your super, it means nothing
doesn't
inside
matter.
Your super. So that's
because it sounds great.
It's amazing. But the issue is most people buy the wrong property. So for example, I just spoke about a recent client, same thing. They got fucking shafted. Off the plan apartment in Melbourne, fucking held it for whatever they've held it for. They're selling it at the moment now because I've said that's a bad idea. Sell it. Not a dime they've made. They're losing money. But people think that, because it's superannuation, it doesn't really matter, because it's people can't think fucking past tomorrow, let alone in 30 years' time. So they don't think about it logically and they buy the wrong asset. That's the issue. So if someone's going to sell you into super through a seminar, It's a bad idea. Don't do
it. Are there rules? Are there rules about what type of properties you can buy with your super? Does it have to be a brand new build, or you could still buy
like
the right
if you
type of property?
if you roll your superannuation into your own self-managed super fund, sell everything and it's in cash.
Mm-hmm.
There are rules around what you can invest in, but like you can essentially invest in nearly anything you fucking want. Like get advice on that, obviously, but like you want to go fucking invest in a collectible car, like you can do that. You want to go invest in gold or crypto, like you can do all that shit. So in terms of real estate, like you can invest in residential, you can invest in fucking commercial, you can invest in lots of things. There's rules around how much lending you can get because serviceability is limited inside of your super fund. And how much capital you need and all the rest of it. But yeah, essentially what you can buy outside of super is nearly the same as what you can buy inside of super.
Okay, yeah. All right, sweet. Well,
yeah, lots of people to think about, oh yeah, well, it's just like 20 years away. Just buy it, just put it there, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
It's not fine. You probably want your money in super working harder for you than the stuff outside of your super, because if everything goes wrong outside of your super, that's all you're going to have left.
Well, but you'd think though, if for example, I'm 31, so I can access my super in almost 30, like another 30 years, right? Not that I'm fucking sweating on my super. But what's going to perform better? And this is, again, I've got no idea about the process, right? That's why I wanted to ask you as well. I've got my super, it goes 7% a year, 8% a year, whatever it is, something around that, which, that's fine. Surely property is going to outgrow that, right? So wouldn't it be wise to use super?
Yeah, well, super is just a vehicle, right? So what it grows by is dependent on what you invest in. So like if you're saying it's growing at 7 or 8% per annum, that could be invested in just an industry fund, which essentially means you've got your superannuation money and you've just gone and invested it in an ETF, for example. That's what it means. If you invested in property, again, it's your money. It's the same money. You just chose to invest it in a different asset class. Superannuation is just the vehicle that the asset is held in. The property generally outperforms because you have this element of leverage where you're using a portion of your money and a lot of someone else's money. That's why property generally wins.
Yeah, I got you.
Because even if they perform the same, 7%, 7% of $1 million because you've used 250,000 in your super and then borrowed 750 versus just 250 growing at 7% in shares. Well, the $1 million wins every day of the week, even with holding costs.
100%. Look, we'll start to wrap up. I want to ask you a few last questions before we do. You're a renter, right? You're still a renter? A lot of people say rent money is dead money. What's your thoughts on that whole premise?
Yeah, rent money is dead money if you don't do anything else with the rest of the money. So like I live in a $12 million house. Cost me 16 grand a month to live there. The mortgage on that $12 million house, if I was to borrow 80%, so I borrow like 9 or 10 million bucks, would be 700 grand a year in interest. like I could go buy that house, get a big mortgage, spend 700 grand a year or fucking 60 grand a month, or I can rent it for 16. Like I'm saving $45,000 a month. Now, if I went and pissed that $45,000 a month up against the wall, then yes, that's dead money. But if I went and invested that $45,000, it's a much better use of the
particularly
in
like when you paint the numbers like that, like it just goes to show in the eastern suburbs, it's got to be.
If you're in a low dollar value area, then there usually isn't any disparity between renting and buying. And sometimes it's more expensive to rent than it is to buy, like in regional areas and shit. In good areas where I want to live, like it's fucking so much cheaper to rent. Like previous to living in this place, I was living in Watson's Bay. It was costing me $2 grand a week, $8 million house.
$1,900 a week.
Yeah, there you go.
I remember from last time.
Before that I was in Darling Point in a harbourfront apartment, $1,500 a week, probably like $6 million apartment. Like it just doesn't make any sense to own them. But then if you go buy investments and have investment debt, all the debt's deductible. And you have the flexibility. So for example, my business is crushing right now. Let's say something shits on me next year and my business is fucked. If I'm tied to a $10 million mortgage and my business goes to shit, you know how hard it is to sell a property like that in a hurry if the marketplace is not great? It's fucking hard.
Yeah.
And I don't want to really be foreclosed on. You know how easy it is to give back the keys to a property manager and say, I'm out, see you, keep my bond?
Yeah.
That easy.
Yeah.
So that's also the good thing,
100%.
right? Like if you're in that, or if something changes and you want to go overseas or whatever it is, like you have so much flexibility.
No, I think it's a great point. Like I was rewatching that video as well from before, when you break down the difference in terms of cost, it's fucking astronomical. If you're thinking about someone buying a property somewhere in Western Sydney, like you said, it's less of a difference. You can often, it's not going to be too different.
If you're spending $1.5 million on a house or anything, house, apartment, whatever, generally it's better to rent than it is to buy.
Wow. So anything at 1.5
or 1.5 and north of that number, it starts to become a pretty big disparity.
I mean, that was me being very privileged. It's not that much.
It's not that much in Sydney. That's fact.
Yeah.
But yeah, there starts to become a pretty big disparity. And the numbers change when rates change too. But like when rates were at 2%, rent investing wasn't as sexy because 2% interest.
It's like, fuck yeah, I'll take
It's
that
like
all
on a
day.
$10 million mortgage, it goes from being 700,000 to 240,000. A lot of difference, right?
Yeah.
So then the gap between what I'm paying in rent versus what I'd be paying in a mortgage isn't that big. But now rates are probably where they should be, being 6-ish%. Big gap.
So how many properties do you have now?
I think 15 or 16.
15, 16. What's your best investment you've ever made? And I'd love to know also what's the worst investment you've ever made?
Best investment I have ever made. So, I mean, I just bought another one in this apartment block. So I'm acquiring the block slowly. The 6 apartments, I now own 3 of them. Literally beachfront, one of the best streets in Bar Beach. That from a performance point of view has done the best. Like I bought the first one for $660. It's worth $1.2 now. I bought the second one for $710. That's worth $1.2 now. So they're like, they've done well, but like the best investment would be the first property I ever bought, because that investment was the one that got me all the rest of them. So depends on how you're looking at it. So worst investment that I've ever made is a funny story. I bought this off the plan apartment.
Off the plan, fuck, that gives me nightmares.
You're going to love this. So I tell everyone not to buy off the plan. And during COVID, developers were scrambling, right? Because it was like, no one's buying property, like when it first hit. And we ended up piecing this deal together with this developer where we only had to put down a $5,000 deposit to buy these properties, because he just wanted to continue to move stock and keep things tracking. So we put down a $5,000 deposit and we didn't have to pay anything else until settlement. And I was like, fuck. My worst case scenario is that the property's worth less when it settles than it is right now. And I would just keep the $5,000 and then they would have to sue me and pursue me anyway. And the reality is, if their fucking development's shit, they're probably going to go broke anyway, so they won't be able to sue me.
Yeah.
So that was how I looked at it. I'm like, okay, I'm going to buy this thing. I'm going to sell it on settlement.
That's pretty ballsy already to have that,
mentality.
Yeah.
Well, that's just reality. It's
I know.
If they're going broke, they're not going to be chasing me. And if the development's crushing it, then I'll be able to sell it for a profit. So
exactly.
That's how I think about things in my head. So bought it for it was like $600,000 or something, exchange for $500,000. Settlement was approaching and it was worth $800 or something. So I made a couple of $100,000. Now, a couple of $100,000 at face value is what I made. Then I had to pay stamp duty on the purchase. I had to pay selling costs on the back end. There's a few other things I had to pay for because of the way that I did the deal. And I ended up coming out with like fucking $50,000 or something now, which is still a 10x return.
So it's not like you fucking lost a lot of money.
I've never lost money because I've never sold something. I bought an office building for $6 million in Paddington a few years ago. Me and my business partner parted ways. 2023, we sold it for $7 million. I didn't make $1 million by the time you factor in holding costs, all that shit. It netted neutral.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've never lost money. I bought this block of land on the Hawkesbury River in a place called Ebenezer because I was like, I'm a mad dog. I'm going to go buy the fucking cool property on the river, turn it into an Airbnb. Bought it. Within the first 2 years, it flooded 3 times. And when I say flooded, like completely underwater. And I was like, that is a dumb thing to do. But now it hasn't flooded now, just a fucking sick property. So
yeah. Me and Mel have been looking at, properties, Bowral, Currajong, around those sorts of, like, just want to get outside of Sydney as well. But again, we're talking to buy and live in as well. But I get the appeal of it, man.
It's good. It's good. If you don't have to be in the city for anything, it's good to live out there, but fuck, it's hard to get back into the city.
Yeah. Anyway, we don't need to talk about what I'm doing.
Get a helicopter.
Last question. I think a good place to finish up. We've talked a lot about, economics, the government, all that sort of stuff. But I think like the biggest overarching thing, whether we're talking about the business or investing, that I'd love to get your take on is like, what's the fucking mindset you need to, be successful, create financial freedom, whether it be property or business or otherwise? What do you think, like, what's that one piece of advice you can instill to people listening, whether they're fucking just getting started or they're doing okay for themselves? What's the overarching mindset piece you think people need to have to be successful with investing?
Well, all I can talk about is the mindset that I have. And there's a lot of people that have made fuckloads more money than Jack Henderson. So I'm not saying I'm right, but, I think the mindset needs to be, you need to be a bit of a selfish prick. Like that's the reality. I don't want to have children for a very long time because most people focus on family. They want to have a family and all the rest of it. That's amazing. I couldn't care less about family from a lens of I don't want to have kids. I care much more about my own financial security than I do about kids. Okay. My missus doesn't agree with that. And there's no right or wrong, but I'm like, I don't want to be that single dad, single mum that gets stuck in that situation.
Yes.
I want to be rich as fuck. And if I get stuck in that situation, I have money to get out of it. I want to have financial security. So I preface that much more than kids and family. And for me, it's if I want to make myself feel better, I just look at the people who are commenting bad things on my post, and then I click on their profile and I look at these fat, useless fucks and I go, oh my gosh, why do I even care about it? Because that's the reality. People commenting are like spitting their hate on you from a place of insecurity. No one who's crushing it, one, has the time. Even if they think you're a fuckwit, they're not going to comment because they don't have time. They don't want to look like idiots. So like you need to get used to the hate. You need to get used to like the fucking, because it comes. As soon as you start to grow a brand, like, to get recognized, you need to be different. You need to have opinions. Some people agree with them, some people don't. I embrace it, but like you need to have a mindset of you can't let. That's the hardest thing, right? It's like you start to think you're on the right path, then you start to get this external noise, and then you're like, oh fuck, am I doing the right thing? And
it's the truest saying ever that I've never met a hater doing better than me. People don't punch down. That's the thing. If someone's hating, and it's like also, you're at the stage now where you're good at what you do, but when someone's just starting and they've got to be putting out content trying to build their brand, they're not all necessarily going to be good, right?
No, if you go back, you can see all my first posts. They're all still there. I've done like 4,000 posts now. Go back to my first ones. I was terrible. At the time, I thought I was a superstar. I was like, I'm the fucking man.
Have you seen that guy? I talked to Joe about it. I don't know if I showed you. He's like this, he's a good example. I don't know him. There's this kid, he would be like
Christian.
He
interviewed with us.
And he always calls and gets like the guy.
Yeah. I did a video on him the other day around like, I spoke about him in a video around like, man, the reality is he's got attention now.
Yes.
That's the awesome thing. And people like have taken the piss out of him. And what the fuck's his tagline? It's like,
I'll go run the numbers or something.
Yeah. And it's like, in fact, we're talking about him, right? So
I know.
He's, he's like not scared.
But that's what I mean. Even if you're not good at the start, you have to have the balls to push through it, because you're never going to be good if you just be like, okay, I'm shit, people are not liking it.
I listened to a thing that Hormozy said the other day, which was like, poor people stay poor because they're worried about the opinions of other poor people.
Yes, fucking facts.
And it's like, it's so fucking true, because the only person who's going to look at a video and go, this guy's a fucking idiot, are fucking idiots. So it's like, I don't look at that Christian guy and go, you're an idiot. I look and go, what a funny cunt.
I go, you're hilarious. Exactly. Yes.
And it's like, I'd much rather get my opinion of someone like that than like some clown commenting on his shit.
Yeah, like he's just a kid as well. It's fucking makes it so
having a crack. Funny. It's like, and that's how successful people think. Successful people think and go like in there, it's like, you're a fucking funny cunt. So that's the mindset. And I remember when I first started, it was the same thing. It was like, I literally felt like it was me against everyone, and I was like, had something to prove.
Yeah.
So you need to have that dog.
Fucking oath. Look, we'll leave it there, Jack. Where's the best place people can find out more about what you do?
Just fucking run the numbers.
Yeah, run the numbers. It's like,
what a great guy. I fucking love you, Christian.
I know.
Sorry I didn't give you a job.
Fucking fine.
Where can they find me? Jack Henderson, Instagram.
Yeah. And then you'll find
on YouTube now as well. We've been cranking a bit of YouTube.
Mm-hmm. The last podcast had like 3,000 views in a couple of days.
Did it?
Well, as of today, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
On YouTube.
On YouTube.
Fuck yeah.
3,000 views, I think, 3 days.
My profile.
Your profile,
I got 2,100 subscribers now. Let's go, baby.
Let's go, baby. Jack Henderson on everything. You'll find him. We'll link him in YouTube in the podcast notes as well. Just a great follow. If you're planning on getting in the property market now, you're already in it, or thinking about it next year, great follow. So highly recommend.
Thanks, Legend.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it. All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode or you got something out of it, do yourself a favor, do me a favor, do your friends a favor, and share this with them, and they can come along on this journey with us. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.